Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be doing a guide for Ethiopia for EU4 1.35 Domination. So Ethiopia is a nation that starts off in the Horn of Africa, and even though we're one of the most powerful nations over here, we start off with this awesome 655 ruler who's going to help us get an amazing start, this amazing mission tree, and the ability to form Axum, and these excellent national ideas. Lots of newer players are still deterred from playing Ethiopia due to the threat of the Mamluks looming to the north, and even if you don't get involved with the Mamluks pretty soon, you will get involved with the Ottomans or someone else like that. But make no mistake, as Ethiopia, we're going to consolidate this region right here in no time, convert everything to Coptic, dev up these gold mines that we're going to get, defeat our Sunni neighbors to our south, take control of the entirety of the Horn of Africa, and then easily expand into Egypt, Arabia, the Mashriq, and even further. And you'll be able to very easily defeat the Mamluks and maybe even the Ottomans later on if you do come in contact with them. Ethiopia's amazing mission tree right here gives us various claims on this region, and further it gives us awesome bonuses to our government and development, and it enables us to form Axum later on. We do start off with the unique Nigusa Nagas monarchy, which gives us -1 national unrest, a stab discount, and a move capital discount, along with the unique military regiment Kawa right here, and that amazing government reform, this amazing mission tree, and these excellent national ideas such as land attrition, monthly autonomy change, discipline, prestige, government thingy, war exhaustion, and fort defense, diplorep, missionaries, CCR, and army tradition make Ethiopia a super powerful nation. So sit back, relax, and learn what you need to do as Ethiopia. Alright, here we are as Ethiopia, and as lots of you may have noticed, we do start off with a rebel stack, Beta Israel Separatists, who we do need to take care of immediately, because if they do get control of this province, they are gonna break free. But this is no big deal at all, we're just gonna go and beat them up very easily. But before all that, we do need to go into our estates, and you need to summon the Diet. Go ahead and choose whichever agenda is best for you. Then we're gonna give the clergy religious state and clerical advisory council, along with enforced unity of faith and clerical education. Then we're going to give the nobility primacy of the nobility, increased levies, and aristocratic councillors, along with strong duchies. And then we're going to give the burghers land of commerce, patronage of the arts, commercial advisory board, and indebted to the burghers. We can't seize land just yet because we have some rebels. Right after we beat them up, we'll be doing that. As Ethiopia, we do also start off with two subjects right here, Hadia and Damat, and you're going to want to tell your subjects to go ahead and siege. We'll deal with them later. Of course, we'll be annexing them and stuff like that, and expanding in the nations south of them. Next, we need to pick a Coptic blessing, and as a Coptic nation, we can choose one of these whenever a Coptic nation controls one of the holy sites, and the holy site is also Coptic. Of course, we do start off with Axum right here, controlled by a Coptic nation, and it being Coptic, so we can take a blessing from that immediately. And the first one that I recommend you go with here is the missionary strength one for plus 1.5% missionary strength. You might think the CCR or the discipline is better, but trust me, we do need to start converting right away because everything around us is not Coptic, and not even everything in our country is Coptic. So go ahead and choose this blessing right here, and we'll go ahead and start converting these provinces pretty much immediately. Focus on the Sunni ones first. I think we'll get an event for the Jewish ones later. Next, you can also go ahead and set some rivals, and pretty much the only nation you'll be able to rival is Adal right here. And then we're simply gonna take this army right here, give our air military command, and simply send him to this province right here, so you can immediately deal with these rebels. Right now, it's also time to hire some advisors. We aren't making money at the start as Ethiopia, but we will start making money real soon once we conquer the gold mines, so it's not gonna be a problem if you take on a couple of loans right at the start. So go ahead and hire whichever level 1 admin advisor you want, preferably a missionary strength or an inflation reduction guy. I do have a missionary strength guy, so I am going to hire him. Get an improved relations or diplorep level 1 dip advisor. I have both of those guys, so I'm just going to get this diplorep guy. And then get a morale, discipline, fort defense, or manpower level 1 mill advisor. I do have a manpower guy, so I am going to hire him. Now we also need to start focusing on our mission tree, and we'll focus on getting this mission, this mission, this mission, and this mission done. First, for Ethiopia's army right here, we just need to build up to force limit. Pretty simple, we'll do that very soon. Then for this, we just need to beat up the rebels. Once again, very simple. For this right here, we need to improve with both of our subjects up to 150, so we will start doing that now. So tell one of these diplomats to improve with Hadia, the other one with Damat, and then once you can, royal marry them as well. And then for this mission right here, we just need to develop the province of Axum, which is right here, 5 times. And then we'll get cores on this area right here that Medipari owns. So now it's time to simply unpause and beat up these rebels, and then we'll move on. You may also notice that we start off with a free merchant as well, but for now, this guy can't do anything, so leave him. Once you've beaten up the rebels, you will be able to take this mission right here, Gideon's Revolt, where this event happens. And you have two options. You can either lose 2 stab and Semyon loses their cores on the provinces right here and they immediately flip from Jewish to Coptic, and then you can gain 1 stability, but you won't be able to convert these provinces until 1470, but also they won't give us religious unity penalties. Of course, the best option right here is the second one. And there we go. That's 1 mission accomplished. For this next one, we need to have 75% religious unity, which we will do as soon as we convert some of these Sunni provinces. Now that we're done with that, we can also go ahead and seize land. And we do need to work on rearranging our army over here a little bit. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this main stack right here and delete 1 cavalry regiment. It is a bit too expensive for now. And then of course for that mission we do need to build up to force limit, but we also want to get some Kawa regiments up. So I do recommend building a couple of those guys, 4 to be exact. There we go. And then you can also go ahead and hire the Free Company. That will take us a little bit above force limit, but it's not a problem. And then once you do that, you will be able to take the mission Ethiopia's Army, where we gain permaclaims on these areas down here. We'll be fighting these nations very soon, so that's great. After that, you're going to want to activate the Encourage Development State Edict over here in the state of Tigray and develop Axum 5 times, in whichever category you want. As we can see for this mission, we just need to dev it 5 times, and I also have an estate agenda for this, so that's great. So there's 1, 2, 3. I'm doing this so I can equally spread out my development, and then because we've devved it and it's Coptic, we can also secure religious unity, which gives us -1 local arrest and plus 15% local tax in certain provinces. There we go. And then I can develop it a couple of more times. Boom, boom. And just like that, we've developed Axum 5 times, and we can take the mission The Ancestors' Capital. We gain a dev discount, yearly prestige, and a cathedral in Axum, which is excellent, along with cores on these provinces right here that Medibari owns. And there we go. Now we have 2 options to start our first war, either in these small guys down here or reconquer our course from Medibari. Now that that's all done, it's time for us to figure out where our first war is gonna be. And of course, it's either gonna be up here or down here. Preferably, you would fight Medibari first, but of course, go ahead and check their alliances. In my case, they've allied Alodia, which is not a big deal, but they've also been guaranteed by Adal, which is kind of annoying. Sure, you can beat them right away at the start of the game, but there's no need to concern ourselves with that. Additionally, the gold mines are down here, so we do want to go for them as well. And then I can go ahead and check Genjiro, and Araya right here, Kaffa, Walyata. None of these guys have any allies, so of course it's easier to fight them. So go ahead and declare your first war on whichever of these 4 nations down here or Medibari you want. It doesn't matter, it's totally up to you. I'm gonna take care of Genjiro first. And there we go. There's your first war started. Since there's no point in waiting around, if you catch any of these guys without allies, just like it is in my game, you can just straight up declare on all of them immediately. No need to wait around, these are all tiny nations that you wipe out very quickly. There we go, I've just beaten both of these nations up. If you're fighting any of these guys down here or Medibari, you're gonna full annex any of them. So there we go, there's a piece out on Genjiro, full annexation. The same deal with an Araya right here, full annexation. And then as soon as you wrapped up some of these guys, move on with your next wars immediately. No need to wait around. I'm gonna declare on Kaffa right here. And I'm also immediately gonna declare on Walyata. Once you improve relations with your subjects above 150, you will be able to take this mission right here, which gives us some permaclaims on areas around us, and this event happens. Basically, you can choose this first option for Diplo Annex cost minus 25% for the next 30 years, or some income from vassals and Liberty Desire bonuses. Of course, we do want to annex our subjects. It is very important to do so. One of them has a gold mine, so you will be choosing this first option right here. In my game, I've just gotten a new champion of the Joust event right here, a 100 Tradition General, and let's see if he's good enough. Of course, when you get this, this is excellent. You should almost always choose this first option right here, and let's see how good he is in my game. And in my game, he's actually insanely overpowered. If I use this general right here, this might make the guide not relevant for you guys, which means it would make my wars easier and stuff like that, and they wouldn't necessarily be as easy for you guys. So it is what it is. It's a guide, and to keep it fair for everyone, I'm gonna have to dismiss this general. Additionally, I've also given myself back the prestige and the legitimacy by using the console. And now that my wars with Kaffa and Walyata are done, of course, I will be full annexing both of these nations. You should be doing the same. And there we go. I've wrapped up all of these guys down here immediately. Maybe in your first war, you fought Medibari. Either way, after you did fight them, you should move on to these guys down here. But after you do wipe out these nations down here in the south, you will be able to take the mission Conquer the South, which gives us a dev discount and missionary strength in those areas right there. This is excellent because we do want to convert them, and we do want to develop Kaffa specifically because it has a gold mine. Now, as soon as you core up Kaffa, you're immediately going to full state all of this, activate the Encourage Development State Edict, and dev Kaffa up to 10 production. You'll be doing the same to Damat once you annex them. After you've wiped out 2 or 3 out of the initial 5 nations that I mentioned that you should fight, you can go ahead and chill for a bit until you core stuff up. Then, simply continue with the same wars. Since for a certain mission right here, we do want clergy loyalty to be above 65%, and that'll give us an amazing clergy privilege right here, the biblical Sabbath reform, we do want to help that out a little bit, and for that reason, I recommend you give the clergy oversight by the clergy. Now that I've cored up everything down here, I will be turning Kaffa into a full state. You should do the same, activate Encourage Development, and then develop this province up to 10 production. Once you've chilled a little bit, it is time to move on with your wars, and at this point, if you've conquered everyone down in the south, you will have claims on these areas right here as well. And of course, after you do get those claims, they're totally valid expansion areas for you. So go ahead and fight whoever you want out of these nations down here, or Medibari, or these other small nations up here. We're not focusing on going this way just yet, so don't concern yourselves with what Adjuran, Mahiran, Adal, and all of those guys are doing. In my case right here, Medibari has actually been PU'd by Alodia right here. Of course, that is possible. They're Coptic nations, and either way, only the Overlord needs to be Christian, but either way, let's not concern ourselves with that too much. I'm going to declare a reconquest for Massawa right here, and also annex Alodia. And there we go. There's my next war started. And by the way, don't concern yourself about getting a border with the Mamluks and then them wanting to fight you. Don't worry about that at all. We want to conquer all of this over here. Keep in mind that at all times we're converting something. I've already converted all of the Sunni provinces. I do have some pretty good missionary strength modifiers from events right here. You'll be getting those same events, so you should always take the missionary strength. And now I'm converting the fetishist provinces that we took down here. You're always converting something. And of course, we will be going with religious later on as well, so that's that. And there we go. Now that this war for me is done, I will be getting my cores back from Medibari and full annexing Alodia as well. And that's my next war done. As you can see in this initial part of the game, what we're focusing on is wiping out all of the weaker neighbors that surround us, which is everyone down here, Medibari, and then everyone up here. Of course, you might find yourself in a situation where some of these guys are maybe allied to the Mamluks or guaranteed by them. As you can see, that is the case with Makuria in my game right here, so don't worry about anything like that that happens. That is completely normal. But now that I've taken care of Medibari, and once you do the same, you will be able to take the mission access to the Red Sea because you have coastline, which will give us 1,000 sailors, and a shipyard will immediately be constructed for the cost of 75 ducats. And there we go. We just got a shipyard right there. Awesome. Now that I have 60 clergy loyalty because I completed an estate agenda for them that I needed to develop Axum's tax for, I can go ahead and check right here, and it does say we need 65 clergy loyalty to complete this mission. Of course, you'll need the same if you've gotten the event Centralization Reforms of Zara Yaqub, or if it's 1460. Either way, after 1460, you should work on completing this mission. And I can get 65 clergy loyalty if I just go ahead and summon the diet, and there we go, it's at 65. We'll go ahead and do the clergy one, for example, and then we can take this mission, resolve the Sabbath issue. After we take this mission, we'll get the biblical Sabbath reform clergy privilege, which is super powerful, and we also get the United Church modifier, which gives us plus 35% religious unity along with 100 gov reform progress. This is very, very strong. Either way, when you get that gov reform progress, it will be time for tier 2 government reform, and in my opinion, you have 2 options. You can go strengthen noble privileges. This is pretty good. We do need the manpower. We will be attritioning a lot, but it also gives us nobles influence. Or you could go ahead and compromise with the nobility. That way, increased levies no longer gives them influence, and we gain a stab discount and your legitimacy. It's totally up to you which of these you pick. I do recommend strengthen noble privileges slightly more, although be careful of the nobility's influence. We will also be giving them the integration policy pretty soon, which gives them even more influence, so be careful about that. Either way, in my game, I'm going to go strengthen noble privileges. If you don't want to, you can compromise with the nobility. Once you get this province from Medibari or any other coastline, it most likely will be this province first, then you can go ahead and tell your second free merchant to collect in the Gulf of Aden. Ethiopia is a pretty bad home trade node. We're of course later going to be moving it on to Alexandria once we gain more control over there. And this is the privilege, the biblical Sabbath reform. It gives us +1 missionary strength, +1 tolerance of the true faith, plus 25% monthly reform progress growth, and minus 10% national tax. Of course, the tax is negligible compared to these awesome bonuses that we're going to get, so make sure to give this privilege to the clergy as soon as it's available after you take that mission. After you develop Kaffa up to 10 production, you can go ahead and lower autonomy over there and turn off the Encourage Development State Edict. And after you've done that, and after you've gotten Tech 4 in every category, you should go ahead and activate the Encourage Development State Edict in your capital state of Central Ethiopia right here, and dev your capital to spawn the Renaissance. As Ethiopia, of course, we can move our capital for very, very cheap, and you could move it to a province where it's even cheaper to dev, but for now, it's not that bad over in these highlands right here. It is one of the cheapest provinces we can get. Later, of course, we will be moving our capital up here to these nice farmlands. Of course, when it's up to 15 dev, make sure to expand infrastructure as well. Of course, I can do it once again now, but it doesn't make too much of a difference. And there we go. At this point, I've developed the Renaissance. It shouldn't take long for you at all either, because we do start off with this amazing ruler. After you dev Kaffa up to 10, and after you've spawned the Renaissance in your capital, you can go ahead and give the nobility integration policy. Once again, be careful of their influence, and then you can go ahead and start annexing your starting subjects, Damot and Hadia. Preferably, you should do Damot first, because they do start off with a gold mine. Around this time is also the point where you should look to ally some Mamluk rivals to deter them from attacking and to maybe get their help when fighting the Mamluks. Usually they'll be the Ottomans, the Timurids, and QQ, unless the Timurids have blown up, in which case it'll be someone else, but you should be able to ally the Ottomans later on, for sure. Of course, at this point, you do not see them, so go ahead and start improving relations with QQ and with the Timurids, or whoever the other Mamluk rivals are that you can see. There we go, I've annexed Damot. This will already be a state, so immediately after you do that, you want to activate encourage development over here as well and develop this gold mine up to 10 as well. After you develop this to 10, you can also annex Hadia. Something else you should do after you flip Massawa to Coptic is develop this province 5 times as well, because we do need to do that for this mission right here, which will give us further claims over on Adal. And when you're pretty close to wrapping everyone up over here out of the initial nations that we were supposed to fight, I'm just waiting for this war to end so I can declare on Dongola, then we will want to move on to Adal, and of course this does give us the claims that we need to fight Adal. So whenever you want to, you can go ahead and develop Massawa as well 5 times in whichever category you want. Preferably, you should do it in Diplo since it does produce gems, but if you're low on Diplo points, simply dev it up in something else. There we go, I just developed it. I didn't use any Diplo points, but it's mainly to show you right here. And then after we take this mission, we get this event where Massawa gets renamed and we gain some development along with a level 2 center of trade over there, which is really, really nice. And of course, we do gain permaclaims on these areas down here that Adal owns. After you develop both gold mines to 6 production, you will be able to take the mission The Riches of Kaffa, where you gain the Burghers Privilege controlled gold mining, and we lose 100 local autonomy in both of those provinces, and we gain some goods produced for 25 years, along with 100 reform progress again. You may have noticed by now, but we do get a lot of reform progress from our mission tree right here. Either way, at this point, you will be able to take your tier 3 government reform, and for tier 3, I recommend Expanded Royal Court for even more reform progress growth and +1 possible advisor. Now that this war between Dongola and Beja has ended, I will be declaring on Dongola. Once again, we're still cleaning these nations up over here. In about 10 to 15 years, you should have wrapped up everyone that you can realistically fight out of the small nations that surround us. And there we go, there's my declaration. And even though I did mention controlled gold mining earlier on, I did not exactly tell you to take it, and the public's opinion on this privilege right here is pretty divided. Sure, it's quite less likely that the gold will deplete right here, but the 15% goods produced is kind of iffy right here. So you can pretty much do whatever you want with this privilege. You could give it out, but you don't have to. It's totally up to you. Around this point is also the time you'll start building buildings. Focus on the marketplaces, inner center of trade, and estuary provinces first. As you can see, we're making some pretty insane money from gold, even though these provinces are only up to the standard 10 development. And now I can go ahead and full annex Dongola as well. And just like that, like I said, in about 10 to 15 years, you should have wrapped up all the small nations around you that you can realistically fight. Of course, Makuria is left in my game because they've allied the Mamluks, but something like that can happen in your game too. It's not a problem. Either way, after you have 8 provinces over here, you will be able to take the mission Unify the Tribes, which gives you 400 colonists in this province right here, meaning it'll get sort of auto-colonized. We gain Nubian as an accepted culture. If it's already accepted, we gain 100 Diplo points, and we gain a permaclaim on Suakin, which is right here. Now, once we've wrapped up all of these guys, it's time to annex Hadia if you haven't already, and then we'll move on to fighting Adal and the other Horn of Africa nations right here. Right here on the 1460s, you'll want to make sure to go ahead and full state everything that you haven't full stated so far. There we go, I do have a couple of states that I can do that to, and then you'll want to decrease autonomy. Of course, decreasing autonomy is important because it will net us more income, more trade power, more manpower, and stuff like that, because autonomy will have been increasing by now due to the low crown land percentage and due to the event that we gain early on in the game where it automatically increases. When you hit Admin Tech 5, it will be time for your first idea group, and for your first idea group as Ethiopia, I recommend a mill one, either offensive or quality ideas. Both of these idea groups will help us fight the Mamluks easier, and it'll help us expand over in this region. We do need to buff up our army because realistically we don't have that many army modifiers in our national ideas, only the plus 5% discipline, which is a finisher, so we'll get it very late, and then we have the yearly army tradition as well. Pretty much nothing else is related to mill. So you do want to buff up your military as soon as possible. Either go with offensive, it's really strong, or you could go quality as well. Even though we have some boat ideas right here, later on we will of course be utilizing boats when we fight over in the Mediterranean, if of course it is your goal to even go that way. So offensive or quality for your first idea group. I do recommend offensive slightly more. And there we go, I've annexed Damot as well. Now, once you do that, and once you look a little something like this, it is time to set your sights on Adal. So buff up your army and get ready to fight them. Now, due to all of the deving that we've been doing, even though we have such a strong ruler and it will enable us to tech up super quickly, before you fight Adal, make sure to check mill tech. As we can see in my game right here, I'm a mill tech over them, which is excellent, and you probably will be as well, but make sure they're not a mill tech over you, which could happen if your ruler dies super early or something like that. Either way, whenever you're ready, go ahead and declare on Adal. You can do a reconquest for your core Dawaro right here, or you can do a straight up conquest for Asab. It doesn't matter too much. You can declare for what you want to, and then go ahead and declare on Adal. This might seem like an easy war, but depending on their allies, it might not be. So you might want to buff up additionally right after you declare by getting a loan or two and getting a merc company or two up as well. I'm gonna get the free company in my case. So go ahead and fight Adal. It shouldn't be too difficult of a war, especially if you're a Miltech over them. Of course, if you can't fight Adal due to an alliance that they have with a super strong nation like the Mamluks, which doesn't really happen too often, but it could happen, you should look for other areas of expansion, which might not be too possible, but you could look to naval invade some of these guys over here, even though I don't really recommend expanding into the Arabian Peninsula before you fight the Mamluks, since like that you'll have two fronts to fight on instead of just one up here. For tier 4 government reform, I recommend support monastic schools. This is great pretty much because we're Coptic. And once you completely beat up Adal, of course you could full annex them depending on if they've expanded or not, but that is quite a lot of aggressive expansion, and not that a coalition will really form, it might not even form, but it will slow us down in conquering other things. So what I recommend when you fight Adal in your first war is taking their coastline, maybe something like this. Once again, like I said, if they haven't expanded, and then you can do a little something like this to maybe surround them, so you're the only nation that can fight them. But most importantly is the coastline, especially this province right here, so we can build a fort, prevent other people from crossing over here, and at this point we'll also start building up our navy. So take around 50-ish aggressive expansion in your first war versus Adal. I'm also gonna go ahead and take all their money. And that's my war with Adal done. Once you take 6 provinces over in the region that Adal starts with, you will be able to take the mission Conquer Adal, which gives us further permaclaims on these areas down here. By this point, I haven't been able to ally either QQ or the Timurids. You might have had better luck than me. After you fought Adal, or basically whichever nation held this province, and after you acquired this province, this is what I recommend doing. And this is a little defensive preparation for the war with the Mamluks, or once again preparation if they somehow declare on us instead of us declaring on them. So at this point, you're going to want to take out some loans, preferably burger loans, just like that. And I do recommend destroying this fort right here that you're going to get from Adal because we don't really need it, and instead building a fort right here in this province. And then up here, you're also going to want to fortify your border with the Mamluks. So maybe a little something like this. As you can see, I'm already building a church here. I'll cancel it just to show you, but you are going to want to get a fort up in that province and then skip a province and then keep placing forts on your border with the Mamluks. A little something like this. About 3 forts should be enough, and then one over here. And at this point, we'll also start constructing galleys right here. About 15-ish should be enough because the Mamluks never built boats in this part of the world, but go ahead and build as many galleys as you want. This is pretty much so we have control over this straight crossing right here. So when we fight the Mamluks, this is the only area that we're fighting them in, and they can't invade us from this side, neither them or their allies. And that's your little defensive or maybe even offensive preparation for the war with the Mamluks. Either way, after you've started these defensive fortifications and beaten up Adal, it's time to chill for a little bit and then continue our conquest down to these nations over here. During this point, depending on how aggressive the Ottomans are in your campaign, they may have gotten a border with the Mamluks, as we can see, which is precisely what's happened in my game right here. And after that happens is when you want to start looking out for the Mamluks and seeing what happens, and you can mark them as a country of special interest so you can get a notification when the Ottomans declare on them. And that is precisely the moment you want to declare on them too. Now, we do know in this latest patch that the Ottomans aren't as aggressive, but since you're playing Ethiopia right here, the Ottomans of course will know you're a player and they will want to go towards you, so they'll definitely start expanding down here. But you might find yourself in a campaign where the Ottomans don't expand down here, as they sometimes do, in which case you'll have to look for other opportunities to fight the Mamluks. Either way, once you start seeing these guys, once you discover a province, you should start improving relations with them. An alliance between you and the Ottomans is definitely possible. And there we go, as pretty much expected, the Ottomans have declared their first war versus the Mamluks in the Ottoman conquest of Halab, and this is the province they're going for, and this is precisely the moment that you may want to declare on them as well. Of course, the Ottomans are asking for mill access. I will give it to them because I do want to get sort of friendly-ish relations with them, and depending on how the Mamluks are set up, by this point they should be a little stronger than you in terms of army size and manpower, but you should be able to buff up your army as well to get to sort of their level. And of course, you do want to check Miltech. They are a Miltech ahead of me, which isn't that good, but of course I will be getting Miltech 6 pretty soon right here, even faster if I get a level 2 mill advisor, which I can definitely afford. So depending on how you're set up, right when the Ottomans declare their first war on the Mamluks is also when you might want to declare your war as well. This is a perfect opportunity, so make sure to take advantage of it. In my case right here, I am gonna buff up my army quite significantly now, and once the Ottomans penetrate a little bit and capture a fort or two, I'll go ahead and declare as well. Be careful with the Mamluks, don't underestimate them even if they're fighting the Ottomans. When you get the event Prospering Times, which you usually will during the course of a campaign, it's usually best to choose the second option right here, where it'll give the province plus 25% local trade power. It's pretty much like creating another center of trade, so definitely go with this. For your first stage ability, go with Justified Wars. Once you build up your fleet to about 80% of your force limit, you will be able to take this mission right here, where a very interesting event will happen and will basically discover some provinces over in the Mediterranean. But either way, now that I've just gotten Miltech 6 and I can upgrade my cavalry right here, I can go ahead and declare on the Mamluks. As we can see, they're deep in their war with the Ottomans, and be careful because by the time you declare on the Mamluks, the Ottomans might peace out and the Mamluks might shift all of their attention to you. But either way, now is when I'm gonna declare. If you don't feel strong enough to declare at this point while the Ottomans are in their first war with the Mamluks, then don't do it. Don't mess yourself up, don't rush things. You will have an opportunity to fight them later on. It's just that this is usually the best first opportunity. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and declare. By this point, the fortification should have been built and you should have naval superiority over in this straight crossing right here, which means no one will invade from this side and you can focus all your forces over here. In this war, I'm also gonna annex Bakuria. And in my game, the Ottomans just peaced out with the Mamluks, and in fact, they took quite a lot over in the region of Syria. As we can see, aggressive expansion for them is pretty high, but at this point, once you can see the Ottomans, you will want to improve relations with them. Like I said, an alliance is possible. So now what's left for me is to beat up the Mamluks as much as I can and to take as much as I can. By this point, I haven't been engaged in a single battle with the Mamluks, and they only have 13k troops and 1k manpower, which should make this war pretty easy. Right now, I am gonna separate piece Makuria. Once you hit Admin Tax 7, you will be able to take your second idea group, and for your second idea group, no matter what you went with for your first one, whether it was quality or offensive, I recommend religious ideas. Religious ideas are super important for a nation such as Ethiopia because we are Coptic and pretty much nothing else is Coptic. So we are going to be conquering everything that's not our religion, and of course with this CB, we'll be able to fight anyone and everyone, and all of these awesome bonuses right here mesh super well with Coptic. So religious ideas for your second idea group. And once you've beaten up the Mamluks enough in your first war, here's what I recommend taking from them. I recommend getting this province right here that we have a claim on, and then moving on up just like this and taking all of these provinces right here where the region of Egypt ends. And then I recommend taking Sharkia and these three other provinces right here up to Alexandria. That's about 80-ish aggressive expansion, but don't worry, a coalition won't form. And of course, since this costs a lot of admin points and since we can only take a few more provinces, I recommend that you call it right here with this border. Like this, we split the Mamluks in three, basically this region right here, which only we can conquer, no other nation borders this, and then we have these few provinces right here, and then whatever they have left over here in Arabia and the Mashriq. And that's about enough for your first war with the Mamluks. You can also go ahead and take all of their money, and that's that. You've defeated the Mamluks, now they're not a problem anymore. Now it's just how much the Ottomans will expand it towards you. That's the only problem that you're gonna face, but you may be able to link with them. If you've already allied them before both of you fought the Mamluks, you will remain allied to them. Unfortunately, right now they hate me since they disarmed my province. provinces, so in my game, I'm very unlucky with alliances. In your game, you might have been able to ally the Timurids, QQ, maybe even the Ottomans. In my game though, I haven't allied anyone ever. But with that little expedition that we sent over to the Mediterranean, it does open up alliance opportunities over here with these nations. So you might look to improve relations with some of these guys and then ally them when they can see you. Either way, after you defeat the Mamluks, you will be able to take the mission Conquer Suakin, where this event happens and we gain even more gov reform progress. Basically, Suakin changes to Coptic and we gain some dev over there. And then for your tier 5 government reform, we do have a sort of a semi-unique one over here, grant privileges to the Kawa. This of course it says allows recruiting Kawa even though we already have it, but they also gain 10% less fire damage received, which is actually pretty strong. And then we also have a stab discount, multi-war exhaustion minus 0.05, regiment discount minus 10%, and reduced morale damage taken by reserves 25%. It is pretty strong if I'm being honest. If however you don't think it's good enough, I recommend you go with organized military staff, military engineering, or defensive stance. It's totally up to you. This could be good for helping you defend yourself versus the Ottomans. Either way, this is the one I recommend the most. After you conquer Qasr Ibrim, whenever that is, you should make sure to convert it to Coptic as soon as possible, because then when we do that, we will be able to take another blessing. After you fought the Mamluks, it's time to chill and focus on conquering the rest of these nations down here. If you've already done this right here before fighting the Mamluks, then you already own all of it, and after fighting the Mamluks, you should focus on expanding here. Once you convert Qasr Ibrim, you will be able to take this mission right here, where we gain plus 10% morale of armies and a permaclaim on the region of Egypt. But more importantly, once you convert it, you will be able to pick another Coptic blessing, and these are the ones that will be remaining after you took missionary strength for your first one. I recommend CCR for your second one. When you get this event right here, Pero de Covilha related to Portugal, you should go ahead and choose the first option, honor him. After you core up everything you took up here in the Delta from the Mamluks, I recommend that you go ahead and full state it and then move your capital over to Alexandria just like this. Cairo is a good place to move your capital as well. It's a center of trade that produces cloth and it's farmland, one of the cheapest provinces to dev, but the Mamluks will have already devved it up quite a lot, and since we do want to spawn colonialism later in our capital, Alexandria would be the cheapest one to do it in. And of course, Alexandria will most likely remain your capital until the end of the campaign, unless you move it over to Constantinople or something, if you're even planning on expanding that far. For your naval doctrine, you should go with free oarsmen. Now that I've chilled a little bit after fighting the Mamluks, I'll be continuing my wars down here by fighting a doll. And there we go. Once you convert Alexandria to Coptic 2, you'll be able to take the mission Liberate Alexandria, where we gain Egyptian as an accepted culture. If it's already accepted, we gain 100 Diplo points, and then we gain a tech discount and clergy loyalty, along with permaclaims on some areas in the Mashriq. And once you do convert Coptic, another great thing you can do is pick your third Coptic blessing as well. By this point, we have missionary strength and core creation cost. Now you can go with whatever you want to. I recommend the discipline for your third one. Our fourth one is all the way in this province when we convert it to Coptic, and our fifth one is up here in Yerevan, which is Coptic since the start, but it will most likely be controlled by QQ or the Ottomans by this point. Down here, I'll separate piece Agadir and full annex them. Now that I've pretty much defeated Adal, I'll be full annexing them. We're still working on fighting these nations down here. You pretty much want to go as far as the Horn of Africa region as Ethiopia, even though there are some nice provinces to conquer down here in the Zanzibar trade node, gold provinces and stuff like that. We mostly want to focus north of us instead of south of us. But it's totally up to you. You could go further down if you want to. It's just that I personally wouldn't in my games. I'd stop right about here. Now that I've chilled a little bit, I'll continue with my conquest by fighting Adruan. Once again, you're looking to fight the weakest nation down here that you can. In my case, Adruan is the weakest since they have the least allies. You should be able to take everything from Adruan that you want in your first war if they haven't expanded. And there we go. And since this is all I want from Adruan, like I said, everything in the Horn of Africa region, I'll go ahead and peace out. No need to drag this out for any longer because I don't need to take anything else. And there we go, a couple of ducats too. And that's my war with them done. Now, since I'm not interested in expanding down to the south anymore, I can add a couple of forts down here if I want to be protected from some nations in the south, but it really doesn't matter too much. Now I only have Warsangali and Maharan left to go in the Horn of Africa. By this point, you may have already wiped out everyone over here. Now that a little bit of time has passed, I'll declare on Warsangali. We're just taking care of any nations that are left. For your tier 6 government reform, you should either go with aristocratic court for diplorep improve relations and favor growth, or you should go for general estates where calling the diet no longer increases influence. All estates get plus 5% influence, but they also get plus 10% loyalty, and we gain even more monthly reform progress growth. Of course, later when absolutism spawns, you will want to swap to royal decree. but for now, go with one of these two. I'm gonna go with aristocratic court. More importantly, once you get your tier 6 government reform, you will be able to take the mission Centralize the State, which is one of the most powerful missions that we have, since it unlocks the Solomonic Empire government reform, and this event happens. Pretty much we can choose this first option right here, where we enact the Solomonic Empire tier 1 government reform. We become an empire if we weren't one already, and we gain national unrest -2, +2 tolerance of the true faith, +20 max absolutism, and +1 possible kawa. And that bad event from earlier on, decentralized state, will be removed from Ethiopia. But of course, make sure to have move your capital to Alexandria already before you choose this first option, because we won't be able to move it for so cheap later on. And there we go, now we're no longer the Negusa Nagast monarchy, instead we're the Solomonic Empire, a really powerful government reform. Super nice mission right here. Now that I've defeated Warsangali, I'll be full annexing them. And now that that's done, it's time to wipe out the final nation in the Horn of Africa for me, the nation of Maharan. And now that I've defeated Makran, I'll be full annexing them as well. And by this point, probably a little earlier too, you will have wrapped up all of the nations in the Horn of Africa, and after that you'll be able to take the mission Unite the Horn, when we gain some monthly autonomy change and some permaclaims over in Arabia, in these areas right here. Now that I'm done with this, it's time for me to declare my second war versus the Mamluks. By this point, you should have definitely fought the Mamluks at least once. This is all they have left by now in my game. And like I said, now I'll be declaring on the Mamluks for the conquest of Cairo. And now that I've 100% of the Mamluks, here's what I'm gonna take. Of course, these provinces right here are super expensive and super high dev, so even if they are this small, you of course won't be able to full annex them. This is everything that I can take, and that's with 100 aggressive expansion. Sure, a coalition might not form, but it'll once again slow us down from conquering a whole lot more. So what I'm gonna do is simply take these provinces up here, and then a little something like this, and then I'll finish them off down here later. But that's my second war with the Mamluks done. Right now, because I lowered autonomy pretty much everywhere and everywhere is full stated, my force limit went up massively, deleted the free company, and I built up another stack. The infantry is comprised entirely of Kawa regiments. And by around the time colonialism comes around, your game should look a little something like this. Basically, we started off as Ethiopia and started off by completing the top part of our mission tree right here, these initial missions, wiping out the rebels. Of course, there might have been some that you couldn't fight due to their alliances. Either way, no big deal. Once you took care of those guys, you should have looked to fight Adal and to take some of their provinces over here, mainly this one right here, so we could build a fort and build up our navy and stop other nations from entering our country through this direction when we fight them. And after that, after fighting Adal, you should have continued to fight your way through the Horn of Africa nations over here. Of course, during that point, you should have looked for an opportunity to fight the Mamluks, ideally when the Ottomans declare their first war on them, if not a little later than that, if not a little earlier than that, depending on your situation. And by this point, you should have fought the Mamluks at least once, ideally twice, and you should have taken care of all of the nations in the Horn of Africa. And this is what your country should look like by now. Basically, you own the entire region of the Horn of Africa, and you fought the Mamluks once or twice. And depending on the alliances over in Arabia, you might have pushed into this area a little bit too. In my case, I haven't, and I probably won't for quite a while, because Yemen have allied the Ottomans, and the Mamluks, even though the Mamluks aren't that strong, they're still allied to the Ottomans. But either way, during this point, we haven't only been expanding, because some of our initial missions do tell us to develop quite a few provinces, such as the province of Axum right here, then this one that we take from Medibari and stuff like that. But that's not the only development we've been doing. By this point, you should have also developed the gold mine in Kaffa up to 10 production, the gold mine in Damat up to 10 production. As we can see, it's depleted a little bit in my case, but no big deal. And you should have also developed your initial capital, Gondor, right here, where we spawned the Renaissance. And after that, after colonialism spawns, which is pretty much now, you are gonna spawn colonialism over in your new capital of Alexandria, which is super cheap to dev, level 2 center of trade, farmlands, so it'll come in super handy and super easy to dev. But of course, deving is also not the only other thing that we've been doing by this point, since we're raking in so much money. As we can see right now, I'm making about 18 ducats a month, which might not seem like it's that much, but I do have a 70k stack right here with lots of cannons, and the trade setup isn't optimal just yet. But by this point, you should have upgraded all the centers of trade that you own to level 2. As we can see, I've done that already. All of them up in Alexandria, in Ethiopia, in the Gulf of Aden, and of course, you will continue to do that with the other centers of trade that you conquer. But you should have also built up quite a few buildings by this point as well. As we can see, I've built marketplaces in all of the center of trade provinces, a bunch of workshops in the high value trade good provinces, not all of them as we can see right here, but in most of them. There aren't that many, but of course, you will get more later on. A bunch of churches as well, a couple of army buildings here and there, and of course, once you start struggling with governing capacity like I am right now, and once you reach admin tech 8, you will start to build courthouses in pretty much every available province, since they don't take up a slot and they'll bring down your governing capacity. And that's how you should have expanded territorially and how you should have built up your nation economically. By this point, you should have a fleet right here of galleys so you can blockade this strait, so you can stop other nations from coming in here. But later on, once you conquer a big portion of the Arabian Peninsula, you might want to dismantle this fleet or sail it around, because you will be utilizing it a lot more heavily in the Mediterranean. So don't focus on boats too much for now, just this one fleet right here that needs to blockade. And this is what your armies should sort of look like. I have two stacks right here, as we can see, both of them 24/4/7. One is comprised exclusively of cavalry regiments, the other one not so much, but you will want to build up your cavalry regiment in order to unlock this mission right here, which is super powerful. And of course, later on, when you do start making 9 diplo points a month, you will take this mission right here as well, where you'll be able to ally Portugal, so that's really nice. Either way, all of those conquests and development aside, after this point you will continue to follow along with your mission tree. We have only a few missions left, mostly focusing on our army and forming Axum. Of course, after you gain a foothold in Arabia, basically once you have 5 provinces in Arabia, you'll be able to take this mission where you gain permaclaims on pretty much every area in Arabia. And once you gain 25 provinces in Arabia, you'll be able to take this mission where you form the super powerful nation of Axum. And of course, you should do that. Either way, as for expansion, after this point, you'll continue to expand up in the north. Like I said, there's no real need to go down south as Ethiopia, but you can do it if you want to. Zanzibar is a great trade node. There's more gold provinces down here, so you can definitely do it if you want to, but that's sort of not the area you're meant to focus on as Ethiopia. After this point, you'll go on to push into the Arabian Peninsula, finish off Egypt right here, and then push up into the north. And sort of by the end of your campaign as Ethiopia, you should focus on owning this region right here from the Balkans down to the Horn of Africa, and then this region right here from Egypt to Persia, or if you're blobbing out a little bit more, from Maghreb all the way to India over here. So pretty much this region right here is what you should focus on owning, depending on how far you plan on playing. And of course, later on, once you take Antioch right here from the Ottomans, convert it to Coptic, once you take Yerevan from whoever owns it, you'll be able to take the other Coptic blessings. I do recommend staying Coptic for the entirety of the campaign. It's pretty much the way Ethiopia is meant to be played. So you'll push into Arabia, you'll push into these guys. Once you become strong enough, once you get some allies, you will be able to take on the Ottomans, even though they're pretty strong in my game right here. Luckily, they don't have quantity. If you're unlucky and they do have quantity in your game, well then that's too bad. You'll just have to get some bigger allies, maybe get quantity yourself and buff yourself up as much as possible. But pretty much this is the region you want to focus on expanding. Focus on hitting different culture groups, different religions, and minimizing aggressive expansion. Of course, as Ethiopia, we do have access to a couple of great projects, and we will get access to some more. We do start off with this one right here, which is great for missionary strength, prestige, and missionary maintenance cost. You will want to focus on upgrading this because we'll definitely make use of it quite a lot. This one right here that you get from Adal, you won't be able to use it, but you will be able to use the pyramids, so make sure to upgrade them, along with the holy city of Jerusalem, Petra right here, and pretty much those are the main monuments you'll be utilizing in the early and mid game, and then some later on that you take from the Ottomans in the late game. This is what we took for our first 2 idea groups. Like I said, quality or offensive for your first one, but religious absolutely for your second one. After that, for your third idea group, you should take the one that you didn't take for your first one. So if you went offensive, go quality. If you went quality, go offensive. And then for your fourth idea group, since you'll start blobbing out in various trade nodes quite a lot, and you will want to focus on making money as well, I do recommend a trade for your fourth idea group. After that, for your fifth one, I do recommend picking up quantity. It will come in handy if you don't think you need it. If your force limit and manpower is huge enough, you can go with something like defensive or something like that. And then after that, the rest of the idea groups are up to you. This is what we took for our first 6 government reforms. Like I said, by this point, you should be a Solomonic Empire, not the Negus and Nagas monarchy. For your tier 2 government reform, either strengthen or compromise. For tier 3, expand a royal court. For tier 4, support monastic schools. For tier 5, the Kawa. For tier 6, one of these two, but make sure to swap to royal decree once absolutism comes around. For tier 7, you should go with meritocratic recruitment. For tier 8, you should empower the burghers or embrace the economic theory. For tier 9, I recommend this one. And for tier 10 and tier 11, all of them are really good. Take whichever one you want. At that point in the game, you won't make a mistake with either one of them. And like I said, by the time colonialism comes around, your game should look a little something like this. Let me know in the comments below what's the next nation that I should do a guide on. If you want to watch me do stuff like this live, you can follow me on twitch.tv/RoadHawkLive. And if you want to catch up on stuff from over there, you can subscribe to the second channel, link is in the description. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like, it really helps out a lot. And if you like the content and want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of them. And you can become a member today and join the Discord, the link is in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with another EU4 video.